what's up you guys, the Curious Owl here, and this is going to be my December 2018 TBR. This is going to be a very ambitious TBR. I have 28 books that I'm going to try to read in the month of December. Now that may seem crazy, but as you guys may know, I am getting ready for finals. This is essentially my last week of classes, and then next week is finals, and then I am going to be home for 3 weeks, or just about almost a month, essentially, before the next semester starts. Now this is not a set plan, because it's just going to depend on how things work out, but I do have a plan to where I'm going to try to record videos, and then every day try to read through one of my books that is on my TBR pile. I am also doing a 24-hour readathon on December 14th. That is a Thursday. I will basically be starting at midnight on Thursday morning and finishing up Friday morning at midnight. So if you would like to participate in that with me, let me know down in the comments below. The TBR for that is going to be just whatever I have currently in my stack, like what I'm currently working on, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all of these. I've been going through a very massive reading slump for the last couple of weeks. The book that I'm currently reading now, I've been working on for like 3 weeks right now, and I'm only about a third of the way through it, unfortunately, and that's because I've actually noticed that the last few weeks I've had very little motivation to read, and I think that's because with it being so close to finals, it's getting really stressful, and so I don't have the energy to want to read. So the book that I'm currently reading is Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, a memoir about this woman who has gone through not only a very nasty divorce, but a very nasty relationship as well, and essentially decides to take a year and visit 3 different countries in order to try to find herself again. So she travels to Italy, she travels to India, and travels to Indonesia, and this is essentially a book telling about her travels and the things she's learned and the way that she essentially rediscovers herself as a woman, and I've really enjoyed it. This was my pick for nonfiction November, but unfortunately I really didn't get much of the way through it in November because, like I said, I've been in my reading slump, but I do actually thoroughly enjoy it a lot. I am in the second part of it, so I'm about a third of the way through. The next book in my TBR that I have is going to be the 5th book in the Harry Potter series, The Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. I'm really excited for this because if you watched my last 24-hour readathon, I finished The Goblet of Fire, and I loved it so much. I loved it way more than I remember. Basically, movies 5 through 7 are not super memorable for me, nor are the books, because I think that at the time that I had watched them, I didn't understand what was really going on in terms of the world, and so I'm very excited to get back into this book specifically so that I can understand kind of where things were. Next is the final novel in the Divergent trilogy, Allegiant by Veronica Roth. I've heard so many bad things about this book in terms of its ending, so I am terrified. I am scared to finish this series just because I don't know what's gonna happen. Next is an ebook which is called Justice Buried by Hilary Thompson. This is a book that I received for free from Off Tomes Publishing, not for a specific review or anything. This was just one of the books that they had for free when they were doing a sale over in November, and I'm really excited. It's supposed to be a very sci-fi-y kind of story. I don't really know much about it, but I think it has something to do with the horoscope Zodiac. Next is the 6th book in the Harry Potter series, Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. I remember this one more than I do Order of the Phoenix, but this one's still a little fuzzy to me. I remember it's obviously the most important thing that happens in the novel, which is in the very end of the book, but I do remember a lot of stuff more so from the movie. I don't remember how the book goes specifically, like what exactly is different from it. So again, I'm really excited to reread this one because it's been a long time since I've read this one, and I feel like books 1, 2, 3, and 4 were just more memorable for me in terms of like what exactly happened, whereas 5, 6, and then 7 I don't remember much about. So I'm excited to reread this one so that I can actually figure out what it is that I forgot. After that, it is going to be 4 by Veronica Roth. It tells the story of Tobias, or better known as 4 in the Divergent trilogy, and kind of his backstory. The next book that I'm reading is going to be a book from Off Tomes Publishing that I was approved for to review, and that is the 1st book in the Blood Rose series, Blood Rose. I don't know much about this book other than it's supposed to be really fantasy-filled and magic-filled. I don't even remember who the author is, to be honest. I will also be reading from Off Tomes Publishing the book The Traitor's Crux, which was a brand new release in, I believe, October? I may be wrong. It might have been November. It's supposed to be a sci-fi story, so if you're interested in things like Divergent, they say that basically you will enjoy this because it has a lot of the same dystopian sci-fi-y kind of elements involved with it. And I was also approved to review this by Off Tomes Publishing, so thank you again to Off Tomes for allowing me to read this. I'm very excited because, like I said, I kind of want to try to get back into the sci-fi realm because it's been a very long time since I've read any good sci-fis, and I kind of want to try to get back into that because I feel like dystopian Korean YA only does so much in terms of that, and I want to get back into some really true sci-fi-y stories. Next on my list is the final book in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I remember the day this book came out. I remember the day it did because I remember being so excited about it when the midnight release, but I wasn't able to go because I was 10. The next day, one of my friends that I had when I was in the 5th grade came in and literally rubbed this in my face saying, "Ha ha, I got the book, I got the book." So I remember vividly when this book came out, and I remember never finishing it when I was a kid, and I think that was partially because I wasn't really able to sink into the story a lot when I was a lot younger, because when I read this, I think I was like 12. I feel like when I was in my preteens, it was harder for me to read big books like this because it was daunting to me as a preteen. Now I could read something like this and not be fazed by it. I'm very excited to read this book and actually finish it because I loved the movies a lot, but I don't remember them very much. I don't remember much of the story. Like I said, books 5, 6, and 7 I'm a little bit more vague on, and so I'm very excited to reread and actually finish Deathly Hallows so that I can finally say I read the whole series and I loved every single one of them. After that, I will be reading Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, the second book in the Hunger Games series. I am excited to get back into the Hunger Games because I really did enjoy the first book a lot. I remember enjoying it a lot more than I did the movie, and I've heard that Catching Fire only gets better. Next is going to be the book Perfect by Ellen Hopkins. Now, Ellen Hopkins has got to be one of my favorite authors of all time. I just love Ellen Hopkins' writing. It's very simplistic, it's based in poetry, and the poems themselves will tell a story about what's going on. Like, the poems itself is the prose, which is really interesting because I feel a lot of people don't read poetry as often as they should, and I feel Ellen Hopkins really is a great way to get you into poetry because she structures it so freely and so differently than a lot of other poets will do, but it gives you more of an appreciation for what poetry can do with very little lines and very little poems. The next book that I will be reading, which will be a reread series after I finish the Harry Potter series, is going to be one of my favorite books of all time. You guys may know what it is. It is the first book in the Beautiful Creatures series, Beautiful Creatures. I am so excited to reread this series because with the reread, I'm basically going to also include the other novels that are kind of like either prequels or they're like shorter novels, like novellas that are involved in the story that I never got to read because I didn't know about them until I had finished the series. So I'm really excited to reread the series so that I can incorporate those pieces in the story so I know how they fit in and where exactly they're supposed to fit in exactly. Although I know a lot of people really dislike it and I don't know why, but I think after having a good time away from it, like a good 5 or 6 years away from it, maybe I will reread it and see how bad it is to some people, or I may still really love it. I don't really know. We're gonna kind of have to see with this reread. The next book on my list is another book I got for free from Off Tones Publishing because of a sale they were doing, and that is Whispers of the Fallen by J.D. Netto. Now, this is supposed to be, from what they described on Off Tones Publishing's Twitter page, is that if you like things like Lord of the Rings, this is essentially a more YA version of that. And as you guys know, I do love my Lord of the Rings, if you can't tell with my elvish tattoo. And so I'm very excited to read this. When I saw this on their Twitter page being that it was free and it was supposed to be kind of reminiscent of Lord of the Rings, I immediately hopped on the hype train and I'm very excited to actually get through. The next is the second book in the Mortal Instruments series, City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. I read the first one so long ago. I pretty much do remember what happened in the first book. Like, I know specifically some very memorable things that I think will help me carry on into this book, even though it's been about 2 years since I read City of Bones. Then the next book is going to be the second book in the Beautiful Creatures series, Beautiful Darkness, which is a continuation of things that happen in Beautiful Creatures. And this one specifically does have a lot of very sad elements to it because something happens essentially to one of our main characters that essentially puts her into a depression, which I thought was really cool in the story. From what I remember, I really liked this because of the growth that there was in the relationship between the two main characters, and I really just enjoyed that kind of seeing that progression. But again, I think that this is going to be a reread where I kind of have to see why there may be some problems with the series that people had, along with reading the novellas and seeing how they play into the overall storyline of the series. Then the final book that I will be reading on my iPad is again another Off Tones Publishing book that I got for free, and that is the first book in, I believe it's a trilogy, the Coral and Bone trilogy. I think it's going to be 3 books. I'm not sure. It might be a duology. But yeah, it is Coral and Bone by Tiffany Dewan, and I've heard a lot of good things about this because it involves mermaids. If people were saying that, you know, if you like things about like the Little Mermaid and kind of fantasy and really dark material. A lot of people were saying that you'd really like this, so I'm very interested to read it. Next is the book Crossed by Ali Khani. This is the second book in the Matched series. Matched was another one of those dystopian series that I had heard so much about growing up that I really wanted to enjoy, and I really did enjoy Matched. I had a couple of problems with it from what I remember, but I liked it enough to where I wanted to continue with the trilogy, and so here I have Crossed, and then the last one is Reached, and I really want to see if I like this enough to want to continue it, because I always have a problem with books in the middle of a trilogy. I always feel like they're kind of hit or miss for me in terms of how I want to continue with the story, but I'm hopeful that this one's going to still impress me just as much as Matched did. Next is one of the novellas for the Beautiful Creatures series called Dream Dark. This one I believe focuses on Ridley and Lincoln's relationship. I think most of the novellas are mostly centered around these two characters, or at least Ridley, because although she doesn't have a huge part in the novels themselves, she's a very prominent character in terms of the kind of difference that there is between her and Lena. And so I'm really excited to read this because it'll be the first time I will have read it, and I don't know how it's going to go, because I don't know if I'm going to understand what's going on in terms of their relationship, in terms of the timeline of the rest of the series. Next book is going to be an audiobook, and that is going to be Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, I think. I may be completely wrong with that, but I'm going to say Emily Bronte because that's the first name that popped in my head. This is one of those classic novels that I never read growing up. I heard a lot about, though, when I was in high school. I had the option to read it in my creative writing class, but I decided to read instead Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which was fantastic. I really enjoyed Pride and Prejudice. That was the first time I actually read it and really enjoyed it. Next, I have London Bridges by James Patterson. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you will know that last year I had a heavy reading of the Alex Cross series by James Patterson, and this is another installment of the series. This series has got to be going on 25 books, I swear to God. It's one of his longest series ever besides Women's Murder Club, and I'm so excited to get back into this because this is actually the series that got me to start writing my mystery novel when I was a senior in high school. Kiss the Girls was the book that really got me into wanting to write a mystery novel, and so I have a lot of love for this series. I really do enjoy the series. It just seems to get better and better with every book that comes out. Next will be the third book in the Beautiful Creatures series, Beautiful Chaos. This one, basically after the event of the second one, a lot of things start literally turning into chaos as the book describes, and I don't remember much of what happens in this one. I just know that some really crazy crap goes on, and it's really important because it really does develop the characters in terms of their place in the world a lot more. The next book I will be listening to on audiobook is The Scarlet Letter. I don't know who wrote this. I've never known who wrote this. I will never remember the author of who wrote this, but this was one of those stories that I remember hearing a lot about, especially when the movie Easy A came out, because that was supposed to be a play on the idea of the Scarlet Letter. So I'm really excited to listen to this one so that I can understand what the story is, so I can see how it was played into Easy A. So next is Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. Basically what I know about this one is that it is Neil Gaiman reinterpreting these stories of Norse mythology in a sense, not to the point where he's creating something like Rick Riordan would be with the Magnus Chase series, but he's kind of rewriting them in a sense to make them a little clearer for more contemporary people, because a lot of people don't know a lot about Norse mythology. And I really got into it when I started taking this class last semester called Gods, Monsters, and Immortality Mythical Lit. We learned a lot about the stories of Thor and Loki, which, if you guys are familiar with the Thor series and Thor Ragnarok, the entire Marvel franchise of Thor is based on the Norse mythology. Next will be the fourth and final book in the official series of Beautiful Creatures, which is Beautiful Redemption. Essentially, after the events of the third one, Ethan, something happens to one of our main characters, Ethan, and in this fourth book, they have to really kind of pick up the pieces after that, what's happened, and try to figure out what's gone on with him, something that has happened to him that they need to figure out how to fix. And I really enjoyed this one because I think it really helped to understand the relationship that is between Ethan and Lena in this story. I really think that their relationship comes to a complete new level. We are nearing the end of this list. We have 4 books left for the month of December, and the next one is The Merciless 2 by Daniel Vega. You guys know I loved The Merciless. I know a lot of people had a lot of problems with it being kind of a little bit too cheesy in terms of the slasher fiction and the fact that it was very gory. I loved the crap out of it though. Like, if it was made into a horror movie, that would be the only horror movie I would ever watch because I hate gory movies so much. I can never watch Saw. But for some reason, this first book in the series grabbed my attention. I needed it. And the cliffhanger that it left us on in the first book was like, what? So when I saw that they were coming out with this one, I was super freaking excited because I have no idea what's going on. It is supposed to be a continuation of the last story, so I'm very excited. I cannot wait to get to it because then I want to get to the Merciless 3 as soon as possible because I need to know how the story ends. Next will be one of the other novellas in the Beautiful Creatures series, which I think is supposed to be a continuation of the series itself, which is Dangerous Dreams. Now, I think this is supposed to be also with Ridley and Lincoln, but it's supposed to be kind of the aftermath of what happens in the fourth book, and then there is one more book after that, but I don't know if it's supposed to be a novella or it's supposed to be a actual novel. I don't know. I'll have to recheck my source on that, but I'm very excited because this will be getting close to the very end of the series and I'll get to know what exactly happens to everyone after what happened in the fourth book. The second to last book I will be reading is going to be Sanctum by Madeline Rue. I read the first book, Asylum, a long time ago and I really, really enjoyed it. I just could never find the sequels ever. Loved Asylum so much. It's told in a bit of mixed media where you have pictures of different people and you also have the story involved with it. Asylum was about this group of kids who actually go to this boarding school that's supposed to be an old sanitarium, and they find out a lot of very creepy things about this place that nobody has known for 50 years or so, and this is supposed to be basically going back there and finding out more about the creepiness that is involved with this building, and I'm so excited because I loved it so much. And finally, the 28th book that I will probably never get to in December, Dangerous Creatures. Now, I don't know anything about this one. I really don't know anything about who it involves or what it's about, so Dangerous Creatures will be the last one that I will hopefully get to in December, but I have no idea if that's actually going to happen. I really don't know if it's going to happen at all. I may have to have it go up in January. I don't know. If you guys know any of these books or want to let me know about anything in these books that I should know without spoiling anything, let me know down in the comments below and let me know what you guys are planning on reading in December, and if you guys have any plans for Christmas, because I'd love to know. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe button as well to become a little owlet in our flock. I just messed up my whole outro once again. What's new? But anyways, I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.